Okay. Going forward, the core reflection and the internal APIs, right? So you know that we are massively dependent on the internal APIs. There are a lot of applications which are like out public into the market, and they also depends on the internal APIs. Okay, so internal APIs are not for the people who are like outside. Okay, so it has been JDK internally use those APIs. But since those APIs have some kind of public feature, like because it's a public thing, so people use it and then they tweak their application. Maybe for the framework writing or for the IDE writing, those internal APIs are important. But if you will see the typical application, which is the market application like banking or e-commerce and all, not sounds like a good API, a good idea that you need to use any internal API for that. Okay, so internal API are totally guarded. I mean, it has guarded up to 99% into the module system. It's not a good idea to use something like reflection and all and get use it, because now the lot of things are getting resolved at the compile time. If you will add some kind of runtime complication into that, it will be a problem. Okay, so I think that SunMISC unsafe we still provide to people, because we are looking for a good replacement of that. And I know that we have different project where we are working on that. But unsafe was very much important for most people, like where they directly want to handle the pointers, right? So rest all the things where have been removed, or I mean, I will show you a tool like JDAPS scan, which will tell you that first of all, deprecated APIs, what are the APIs that have been deprecated, and you are supposed to remove it from the code. Okay, so not sure that even 15 have JDAPS or not. Yeah, JDAPS R scan is there in 15. So let me run. So what it needs a jar file, right? So that is good enough. I can have some jar file. Let me check it out. Maybe more back. Okay. I have a common math library, and inside that I believe that. So if this guy will have any deprecated API, the JDEP scan is good enough to tell that these APIs has been deprecated. Okay, this is what my understanding is for this. Any minus list. Okay. Right. So you can see that it has like a few of the deprecated APIs like the Java Math, Big Decimal, and all. Being a math API, probably I will forgive this guy to have these deprecated APIs. And if the deprecated API have some kind of replacement, the JDEP RScan will tell you that also. Okay. And it can tell you with any of the versions, right? You can tell like minus release equal to JDK 8. So it can tell you the APIs that have been deprecated from that point of time. Okay. So that is also possible. And the full list of the APIs. Let me see if I can get the full list of deprecated API. Yeah, good. So these are the APIs that has been deprecated, and it is giving you the list from long time. I mean, maybe from JDK 1.1 also. Okay. So interesting for you to know that the recent deprecation, right? The deprecation, we started using something called since. So it will tell you that from when the API, from which version the API is deprecated. And we also started using something called for removal equal to true. So for removal equal to true, that means that at the rate deprecated since 15 for removal true. That means this RMI activation, this class will go out in JDK 16 for sure. Okay. If at the rate deprecated since 15 for removal equal to false, that means that it will be maybe deprecated for some more time and the class will exist into your JDK binary. Okay. So for removal true means it will be removed into the next release. For removal false means it will not remove into the next release. Okay. It will hold good for some more time. I am seeing all for removal true only. No for removal false. Okay. Here also for removal true.
So I think if it doesn't have for removal equal to true, it is not getting removed.
Then that means that we are not sure about it. Okay. So that will be okay. So that creates extra complication for those people who actually suppress the deprecation warnings, right? So you know that warning deprecation comes with a warning, right? So I know that there is a command called minus suppress warning. Please don't do that. What will happen that if something is for removal true and say like you have suppressed your warning, it will not come you. And when in the next release, when it will be removed, you will be broken into the production. Okay. So please carefully, it's a good idea to suppress the warning into the production code, but not into the development code, right? So in the development code, you should see all the warnings that a compiler gives you. Anyway, little deviated from the main thing, but this is how the JDEP RScan works. So this is also one of the tool. You can use it. And here is the tool.
Hey, Vaibhav, one question.
Please.
So you were talking, just before this, you were talking about that module and how reflection will not be supported going forward, right? So any reflection which was there now will stop when we move to module system, or?
No. So the reflection will have a serious impact, right? So when people started working on the module system, actually we were very hard that we will actually stop the reflection. But things like IntelliJ and all those ID, right? And their whole code is written from the reflection only. Okay. So we have still not totally blocked the reflection, but I can assure you that when you will run a code with a reflection, at least JDK 15 will give you at least minimum 5 to 6 warning. Okay. And people are trying to figure it out. Like we are working on the foreign API. I think there is a JEP called right, foreign memory access. You can see it's still into the incubator. I mean, it has been introduced in JDK 14, and we are trying to make a lot of things which can be replacement of proper reflection, or which can be a replacement for proper unsafe, right? I mean, unsafe also being as dangerous as the reflection, right? So after this kind of things will be properly introduced into the code, we are good to release it. We are good to deprecate or remove it. But right now, as per my understanding, reflection will work in your code. Okay.
So in module system, suppose that module is not loaded, then probably it will only fail in runtime, right? It will compile.
Yes. That's right. So what will happen that what we say, like the compile time resolution is not a true compile time resolution. Okay. So if you will do this kind of clever work at the runtime, then the compile time resolution can go wrong. So that happens with something called class fingerprint matching. Okay, you can read the detail that if you will tune out class fingerprint matching in Java. I don't think so enough of document is available, but let me know if you want to know more about it, so I can explain you that how the fingerprint matching happens in JDK. And we do it in the module system. We do in a lot of things, like where we do like kind of AOT kind of things, like
okay,
we make a dump file, right? So if by chance a class will get changed, right?
correct.
Then the class resolutions is too much complicated for us, right? So we keep checking the class fingerprint. If the class fingerprint gets changed, then we have to go from a slow path of resolving the class again, the new class, and load that. Okay. So that can definitely impact your performance.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll discuss with you separately on that. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So this is good. Now, yeah, I will finish the summary of the accessibility so that we can move into the second part. So accessibility is enforced by the module system, not like it is some kind of luxury which it's a enforcement. If you decided that I will make the code modular, it is enforced. You have seen, like, you have to define the module info, you have to properly say the exports required and all those kind of things. Okay, like all module system dependency discovers at the compile .java. You manages your export requires, and then there are few more keywords, right? It is not so simple. Like the transitive dependencies can also be defined. So say like A is dependent on B and B is dependent on C, then A is dependent on C, right? So that kind of transitive dependencies are also there. Core reflection need to be respect accessibility and readability. So you should not keep adding the core reflection. I mean, that's never a practice that we used to tell, but I can understand that a lot of applications are made from the hack, and like basically the debuggers or like the profilers, they need to use it. Okay, be aware of the internal API usage. Okay, so this is a summary of how the readability and accessibility, and we have seen few demos where you saw that how we define the module info. Okay, so now I heard some people said the unnamed module. We will quickly look into the type of module system, right? Like what kind of modules can be, like we defined a module where we have given the name of the module, right, into the example. So let me tell you that what is the challenging path we discussed starting. So the thing is that JDK implementation is totally modular now. Okay, so we define different modules and we try to put things into the different modules, right? So if a class path resolution need to happen, the class path will go to the module info. It can find out the module system. It can go into the look into the package, and the whole resolution of the class path is much simpler than what it used to be in JDK8. So JDK8, when there is a class scan, it will scan in your complete Java SE, it will scan in your complete -CP, whatever the jars you have taken. And you guys have seen, right, the progress bar into the downside of the most of the IDs, right? It will be like, it will take like 10 minutes. Jar path scanning hell or class path scanning hell, many people term those names. Okay, so which get resolved into the module system. Now you decided that your application can be also module, and just I have created module systems like com.world, com.hello. But this is the complication. Like there is a third-party library which you use, right? You just don't use Java SC as it is. So you are using, say, JUnit, or you are using Guava or TestNG and all those kind of things. I can tell you all the serious third-party tools have moved on to the module system. But yeah, there are like those third-party systems which don't have any proper parenting or no companies backing up. They can still be onto the old system. Okay, so this is definitely a challenging path. How you are going to deal with some not so module thing in between and using it. Okay, so there can be many things. First of all, we came with something called unnamed module. So just like how you have named your module, if you will not give any name to the module, it will be called as unnamed module. So these jars, whatever the jars, they by default becomes unnamed module. What is the concept of unnamed module? Unnamed module say that take everything. Okay, no segregation, no nothing, no boundary. Just use it as we were using pre-JDK 9. Okay, just everything belongs to you. So you can say, ideally unnamed module gives everything. Okay, but now depends on you that do you want to take everything or not, right? So I am writing a module system. Don't know, I really don't need all the classes. I can make some module on my own level, right? So is it a good idea that a named module lead everything coming from the unnamed module? The rescue can be done from something called automatic module. This is the third thing which I was planning to discuss when the initial discussion started. Okay, and I think Satish was also giving some light on that. Now, automatic module is it's a kind of magic which we do. So what you have to just say that in place of minus class path, you just convert into minus module path. Okay, and what we will do, we will modularize the whatever the application that is coming. So say like in the Guava, in place of unnamed module, I converted into automatic module. How you will convert into automatic module? You will not use class path, you will use module path. So now I will see that application dependency onto the different classes, right? And what I can do is that I can strip down that guava.jar into the requirements. Okay, so whatever is the required class or the required package, an automatic module can strip down your complete application into that. Okay, and it will be given a name also, just like the name module. Now, if there is some more named module, say like javafx.graph, it want to use the Guava module, it can very well handle the way the named module you are using. So you can have your exports and all those kind of things, right? So you just need to say that javafx.graph requires Guava module. That's it. Okay, we will take care of that. Whatever the classes are there can be stripped down properly so that the complete jar is not required to insert it. Okay. So I believe that you understand the difference between the unnamed module and the automatic module. Unnamed module, just go and give the complete jar, again, class path finding, keep finding everywhere. Whereas the automatic module, it will automatically convert into a module system and it will strip down only to those classes which are required in your application. Okay. So I think so far so good. Yeah, so this is summary defined in my word, like the named module is the new way to go. If like even Satish said that if you are writing an application, you are writing a new application, making from the scratch, definitely you should think of a proper module system and you should make your application. Automatic modules will help you into the migration. It's a good way to migrate with the automatic modules, right? Like let the Java stripe down into the things, whatever is required. Don't use minus class path, use minus module path. Unnamed module, yeah, if you want to live your life with the old minus CP or minus class path, you can have everything as the unnamed module. You don't have to tell anything about the module. The Java automatically understand that whatever is written onto the minus CP, this is all unnamed module. This is how we handle it. No breakage in the backward compatibility. Okay. And as I said, that migration can be done very easily because lot of readability, right? So all the readability comes in free. Okay. So this is how it looks like. Now I will show you a small demo on how you can create your own application using the stripped down version. Before that, I will be happy to take a few questions.
So, Gabby, one question. So, suppose if we are building our new services, so we can use named modules, and for our dependencies, which may not be using modules, so in that case, we can have our automatic module. So, Java will eventually prepares modules automatically, right? I mean, that's what I
Yes.
understand.
Perfect. Your understanding is right.
So suppose if I am building web-based application, one microservices. So I may be using multiple packages plus the dependencies coming from Spring Boot plus JUnit plus other libraries. So eventually I would be using many of the modules, right? So that I'm not able to visualize what is the benefit I would be getting. Because
okay.
I have many modules in my application. So what in that case, what is the benefit?
See, having many modules in your application is perfectly fine. The first thing you should think that when you resolve a class at the runtime, right? How much load a module system will take and how much load a unmodule system will take. Okay. So now you have to search a class. Let's say like I have to search a class called java.sql.time. Okay. Now your application will first go to the module info.java. It will see that module info.java, is it that it says that it requires java.sql? Yes. If it requires, very good. If it is not required, java.sql.time, you cannot use it into your code. As simple as that. Now you know that the module info say that java.sql is there into the package. It will go into the package and it will find out your class. Okay. How it was working before, you can understand that there was no proper guidance. You just have to take your class and you have to search your class each and everywhere. Okay. You have to go and search in your first your trusted class, then you have to go to untrusted class. Then it will come to the extension class. Then you have to trust into your class path, right? So I have written -cp guava.jar, time.jar, math.jar, junit.jar, testng.jar. There are 1,000 jars actually. People, I have seen somewhere it is more than 1,000. So a class path need to keep going into each and every jar one by one. Okay. And I believe that it goes into the order on which the jar is written. Please correct me if someone have this idea. I am not much into the application development. Okay. And it just takes like, there is no end of searching only, right? But here now the things will be very much resolved at the compile time. So it know that this class or this package is coming from which module. Okay. So this is how the resolution will becomes easier.
So runtime, we will get basically many benefits, right?
Exactly. If you are using the module system, lot of benefit. The class path scanning, right? The class path scanning itself used to be a very complicated thing. Okay, so that all benefit you will get into the runtime.
Okay.
Hey, I will put my answers also with you based on my experience. So who asked this question?
This is Rajesh.
Rajesh, okay. Rajesh, so let me list out this, okay. Before we get into the technical part of it, let us just look at the logical part of it. Say, for example, you have 1,000 elements in which 1,000 packages that you are using. But in reality, for example, consider your application as a cloud application. I hope it is that, okay. In desktop, we use a component called Swing. That java.swing alone is kind of 1,000 classes, 1,000 packages or something like that, okay. And if you don't need it, at runtime, I don't need to even care about them. It's not even loaded, it's not even searched. So every class that you are trying to find, 1,000 items are eliminated. That is one. Okay, from the execution standpoint. Point number 2, when you are developing a system, you will always be conscious about avoiding cyclic dependency. Make sure what is exposed only accessible. That control you can only have till a class level access modifiers like private, public, and all those stuff earlier. Correct. Now, if you want to segregate a separate module that it should not use so and so, we did not have a built-in language features where we will use something like RQNet or Maven dependency graph to check whether they are properly aligned or not. That is no longer required because you can control it at the language level itself. In language level itself, when someone makes a module, you can make sure that they are independent, they are not going to corrupt your system. So system stability, system performance, both you can gain if you are using something like a modular-based system.
Okay, so one suggestion from you guys. We are building new services every week and then. Now, if I need to start it, right, and no one knows Java 11 in our company. So what should be our first step and how we should plan it? Can you guide us?
Okay, sure. There are two things, okay. One, if you are starting fresh, then your path will be much simpler because even I shared one of the link where if it is a Spring Boot application, there is a starter for Spring Boot Java 11. It will be very easy. They will exactly set up your module system from the beginning. You can clearly say these are the modules that I need at the beginning itself, and they will do a lot of things behind the screen also for you. That probably what I can do is, we can cover it as part of one follow-up session probably next week. I can take the same topic with Spring Boot, where you can relate how practically it works. Will that helpful?
Yes, that will help.
Sure.
Because until we see practically how to implement.
Yes, sure. I can cover that one. Okay. But the most problematic thing is existing project coming into this one. That's the most complex part. Is anybody facing issues like they are still running on Java 8?
They're still running on Java 8.
Okay, fine. So again, guys, anyway, Vaibhav, your class is over, right? We can stop the recording.
No, the class is not over. Okay, let me finish the class, Satish.
Okay, we finish the class
Just,
because there are certain
okay.
topics that we are going to discuss.
Okay.
That is
Yeah,
supposed to be out of
Just,
it.
just
just a
put
small
this.
query. It is related to identify this module name. Is it supposed to be only like a package name, or I can use other characters like hyphen and other things? Other character, special characters can also be used in
In
module name.
in module info.java, no, you cannot use any special thing. You can just write the structural package names. Okay. So the import, the export required, and the few more things that you can just write that. Okay.
Because only thing was automatic module names when they are generated. It would be dependent on the name of the jar file, right?
Yes.
So jar file name is need not be a identifier or a set of identifiers separated by a dot. So
Okay.
how
You
does
are you are saying that if you are converting into the named module, what is the name you want to give into? Sorry, when you are making automatic
not
module, what is
converting,
the,
automatic? Yes.
yeah? What so automatic module will be named with lot of things. By default, I think it takes the name of the jar at the rate the version of that jar, right? So in the Guava it will come right Guava at the rate 3.1, something like that. It will put the name. You are good to go and change that.
Actually, in the name of the jar, we could have other characters like dash hyphen could be there. It could say Guava dash 1.5, something like
Okay,
that.
okay. Yes. That is very much doable, right? So you are saying that I got your point, right? So you are saying that the module name can be like this, right? It can be like this. There is no problem at all. It can be like this. Okay.
Can
So
include, right, other
yes.
characters.
Okay, whatever
Okay. So
the
not
basic characters. Okay, Satish, I will just finish with a small demo. Okay. More important than that, that if you really want to read about the module system, like this is like kind of the Bible page, which say like state of module system written by Mark Reinhold, who has implemented, who was leading the team. I will not say implemented. So it has all the details and all the complications, whatever it is, and it will explain you the things in proper way. Mark Reinhold, lot of talks are there, and Project Jigsaw and Project Penrose. Penrose, I think, is the project where the JDK module system and OSGI system, there how to make the interoperability between those. A lot of people get confused with the OSGI. Today, anyway, that confusion has not came. So how the interoperability can be increased. That is the Project Penrose. So before ending, just give me 2 minutes. I will, what I will do is that, I don't remember what I'll do, but yeah. So this I have shown before, but today it makes more sense. So because people are totally aware of what we are talking. So in this case, what I am doing, I wrote a hello world, and I am trying to create a complete modular binary to give it to the customer, right, with that hello world. So forget about my few export lines. So I am doing the Java C with whatever the path I want to put, -d means move the class file into a path. So I am, and whatever is the Java files, I am compiling that, and I am moving into the mods com.greeting. So mods com.greeting will have all my class path, no complications. Now with the Java, I am using minus module path, right? This is what I told you in place of class path. So minus module path, give all the mods, right, which you have made the class path, and I have said that make it com greeting, make the module name com greeting, and put com greeting main. Again, removal is just to remove the old things, and then create the jar file, the greetings.jar with that, and the last thing is very important, JLink, right? So I have not seen you the demo of JLink. So now I will use something called JLink, and I will say that create the complete application. Okay, so let's see how it works. So anyway, I will delete this. Now what I'll do, I should have ideally run line by line, but just to show you that in a big thing. So it prints the greeting, which is like my application is as small as that, okay, which is written into the SRC. and right now it is creating an application for you. Okay, so you can see that it has creating something called greeting apps. So if I'll go greeting apps, it has stripped down the complete JDK into only required things. So can you guess what is required inside the bin? I think you all can guess. So you can see in the bin now only the Java and key tool. Key tool is for the creating jars and some signing stuff. It is required. So it will strip down the complete bin, all the things, and it just given you the Java and the key tools. Okay. And the library will have only those important library which is required to run this particular code, right? So if you will go to the library of JDK, you can see tons. I can show you. Right, so sorry. Yeah, the library and then the server. What happened? It should be into the server. Just 1 second. Okay, I'll show you. I'll show you. So now, if you will see the size of the greeting app, right? The complete greeting app, du minus h, I think is the way to take it. It is the complete customer binary, or the package is 29 M. Whereas if I'll show you the size which comes with I keep putting things here and there, and that's why I miss it. Content, okay. Right, so this is the size of complete JDK, and yes, the home lib size, you can see the library is 237 MB, right? So from 237 MB, in fact, it is more than that. We came onto the application of 29 MB, and that this is not the end of the world, right? So I can tell you that right now, while doing the JLink, I have just used the compression factor of 1. Okay, so I can compress further, which have the lot of other compressing techniques like the string compression, and also I think it is supported 0, 1, 2. Now if I will run this file, it will do further compression with the greeting. So last was 29 MB. Let me check this. Right, so it has compressed further for like 5 MB. Now it is 24 MB. So greeting app will have everything, and just to make sure that it has everything, I can show you that say like Java, and where is my jar? Went to jar was into mlibs, I think. Good to go, right? So you are running as smooth as you were running your normal application, Java minus jar and then the jar file. Okay, so not only on the size side, you understood a lot of things will be compiled, compilation, compile time resolution happened, lot of things has been improved, and a lot of good things has happened actually. Okay, and one more thing I want to show you before finishing the day is that just give me, Satish, 2 minutes. I will show you the JDEPs, which I think I promised you, where it will tell you that which module or which compact profile you belongs to. So for running JDEPs, I need some kind of jar file. Okay, let me see if I have some jar file. I used to have, yeah, I have some demo, so I can run with that. So let me see. Say like swing set to Okay. I have not seen the options of JDEPs. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So this is good enough. So JDEPs will tell you that swing set 2.jar, actually it needs java.base and it needs module java.desktop, and it can tell you that, okay, this is unnamed because I told you compact profile 1, 2, 3, and then after that, right? So it say that most of the things it is taking is from the view is I think little clumsy. I should use. Correct. Now the view is much better, right? So it will tell you that what all module belongs to java.base, what all package belongs to java.base, what all package belongs to java.desktop module, and it can show you the complete thing. And JDEPs comes with a lot of other information. Okay, so whenever you are like free and when you have time, you can see it can explain you each and every details, like how you can change from class path to module path, how you can upgrade the module path. All those kind of information is into the JDAPs, and thousands of help is available onto the internet, no doubt about it. That's it from me today. I am resting my case now, and for any query definitely you can reach to me anytime.